head chair for today's round, and with me are my wonderful panelists. I'll introduce themselves from left to right. Starting here.
Hello, my name is Chano. Congratulations.
Hello, my name is William Kim, Best of Both Philippines.
Hello, my name is Rachel Park, best of luck. My name is Heidi Huang, good luck everyone.
My name is Sebastian Zhang, good luck.
My name is Minjung Kim. Good luck, everyone.
General reminder for our audiences, please remain calm while doing your speech to not interrupt our speakers and not leave the room when a speaker is still in front having a speech. Also make sure your voice is audible for our speakers when doing your speech. Now on government side, we have STS2. And on opposition side, we have Day 2. Under the motion that this House believes that art should be assessed independently from the artist, I would like to invite the Prime Minister to begin our debate. Hear, hear.
So I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, good afternoon, honorable judges and respected opponents, as well as our dear guests. My name is Nuradil, and today our team will strongly believes that art will be assessed independently from the artist. So, first of all, I would like to make it easier for you. I will start with the definitions. So, what is art? Art is basically any creative work such as music, film, painting, literature, or performance. Then, what is assessed independently? Judging the artist's value of the work without considering the personal actions, benefits, or some sort of a character of the artist. Example, let's say that there is a movie. A movie can still be a great movie even if the director turns out to be a bad person. So, let me move on to our stakeholders. So the first one is of course the artists and the creators of the work itself. Then comes the audience and the consumer of art. And the last one is cultural institutions and the society. So here comes my first argument, is that we have to protect the value of art. Separating art from the artist protects art and cultural heritage. Artists are human and they often have controversial or problematic personal lives. If society judges art based on the personal behavior of their artist, so many valuable works will be rejected or erased from the public appreciation. But once art is created, it becomes a part of a social cultural heritage. The value of painting, movie, or song comes from its creativity, message, and emotional impact, not from a moral character of one person. So, here is the example. Historical artists have benefit that would be considered unacceptable today. If we judge only through their personal view, we would lose many cultural works. So, let me move on to the second argument. So, art appreciation should focus on artistic merit. The purpose of art evaluation is to judge, first of all, the creativity, secondly, the technique, also emotional impact, and the last but not least, storytelling. These things exist inside the artwork, not inside the artist's personal life. So, what is the impact? Separating art from the artist allows fair and objective evaluation of creativity. So, how are we going to justify our work? So, the first one is that art becomes public once it is created. When artwork is released, it enters public culture. People interpret it, learn from it, and emotionally connect with it. This is the main point. The second one is that if society judges art by artists, artworks will be rejected. The third one is that this leads to cultural loss. Important films, music, books, romance, and paintings stop being discussed. The last one is that separating art from the artist prevents this. When we evaluate only the artwork, we preserve cultural work regardless of the creator's personal life. So, as a result, society keeps valuable cultural work, people continue learning from them, and culture become richer. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech, Prime Minister. Now may we call on the Leader of Opposition. Here, here.
Opposition believes that art should not be assessed independently from the artist. Here's why. Now, in our world, today's world, is a high technology society. Therefore, it's becoming more and more harder for us to define between the techniques between AI art / the human art. Now, in this kind of world, what should art be for us human beings? Art should be about how a human, as an artist, puts his thoughts into his or her work, and for us, the viewers, to view it and feel some type of way, and put it, and also put it in our lives. And by this definition of art, we suggest that art should not be assessed independently from these artists. First of all, it's inevitable to assess the art with the artist. And also, if it is still possible to independently assess, it doesn't have any kind of sort of benefit for the art and the artists and us as consumers. Here's why. First, it's inevitable because the art industry, now, yes, the government told about how art can be known as music, film, etc. However, in this example, I'll talk about the art industry. For example, Van Gogh's art, when he was alive, his work was not accepted in through the public. And when he died, that's when the public started to recognize him. This is his story, and by the public being, the Van Gogh being dead, the public started to finally realize that fact cannot be separated from the art itself and the art's value. Now Van Gogh's art is so expensive, very, very much expensive, and that could also lead to the boom of the art industry itself. So it's good for the art industry too.
Do I?
No, I'll take it later. And also, I would like to talk about how docents, when they try to explain the art, they try to link it to the artist's life and how they were thinking when making that art. And it's so important to the art itself because the artist was the one making that art. And let's say that we can somehow assess it independently from the artist. If it's independently assessed, what can happen? Independently assessed art, even though the artist did a severe crime, they are still being known as they're still putting out good works. Therefore, they are being profited off it. And also, I don't think that's a good society, and it's not setting up a good role model for the public. And also, young kids who maybe try to see the art and the artist profiting off it, even though they did some severe crime, they might think that they might not really have the moral judge yet because they are still growing. Therefore, they might learn some bad moral judgments. And I believe that's not a good thing for the society itself. Now, I will talk about how the art's purpose being a human-to-human connection. Art, movies, films, books, etc. They all contribute to people's public's whole culture, and the public talk about it, and they have conversations, and they create some kind a new thought system because of that culture. And by talking about it, it's very important for the culture. What I'm trying to say here is, and let's say there's a same AI art that mimics the artist's art, but does the AI art have any meaning? It might be the same. It might look the same. However, the meaning behind it, the artists would have suffered to make that art and tried their whole, devoted their whole life into that. However, AI art, which has no meaning, is just worthless, except for the fact that it just looks the same. It's technicality and the quality of the art itself is same, which if you independently assess with the artist, they are being assessed equally. And I believe that's not a good assessment system. And for the PM's argument about the purpose of art being the storytelling technique, etc., yes. However, and that being like, you can assess that all in the art itself. Yes, those factors are important. However, the storytelling part, it comes from the artist itself. Every individual is different and every artist is different. Therefore, the external factors about their lives is already put in their work. And the storytelling of the art itself comes from the artist. That's why the art being assessed independently is just simply not true. And thank you.
Thank you for the speech, Leader of Opposition. Now we call on the Deputy Prime Minister. Here, here.
Give me 30 seconds, please. Okay, let me start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so as the Deputy Prime Minister, firstly, I'd like to start with the rebuttals of the arguments from the opposition side. So basically, they were firstly talking about that it is impossible to assess art independently, and they also gave the example about Van Gogh. That people only recognize him only when he died. But like, I mean, I didn't quite understand the point of that, but of course, yes, because basically he was an author, but not like that kind of person he is. I mean, that kind of person that his pictures was about, right? Because he had very abstract pictures, they like vague pictures, right? But it doesn't mean that he is the person, like his pictures, when he's expressing it in his pictures, right? So yeah, basically also they were talking about that arts contribute to culture. Yeah, okay, we agree with that. And also they were talking about that AI meaningless, but who talks about AI? I mean, we weren't talking about AI at all. But still, even if we talk about AI, still AI pictures, AI art, basically AI still have author, right? Because these people, they have to write prompt, right, to create pictures. So basically they still have author, but right now nobody's talking about AI. So, also you were telling that storytelling comes from the artist and that they like express their intentions in their pictures, in their art, music, and so on. But you didn't really prove that because, for example, there are a lot of singers who are talking about like I fucked a lot of girls and so on, but when in the reality they didn't, right? So yeah, basically it doesn't mean that they are expressing their intentions, right? Because when you talk with them in real life, they basically say, oh, I'm a virgin. No, that's just my art. I really just, you know, it's like very cool. It's a bit vibey, you know? So yeah. Also, yeah, I'm done with the, and also we're not saying that when like supporting harmful artists is endorsing their behavior. No, still, supporting harmful artists, for example, who created like harm, it doesn't mean that we endorse their behavior, right? We separate appreciation from morality, right? And I'm going to explain it further in my arguments. So basically, I want to talk about my first argument, that linking art to the artist leads to systematic removal of valuable culture over time. And I'm going to explain you why. Okay, for example, if we set the rule, for example, art must be judged together with artist morality, and in reality, we actually get that many artists, past and present, they have flaws, they have scandals, or like, yeah, basically that like doesn't match modern values, and therefore, what happens next? People start rejecting works, not because of the content itself, right? But because of the artist. Platforms, for example, they start removing their art, their music, books, films, and so on. And for example, people start to boycott them or stop promoting these works, right? And basically, there's going to be a scaling effect because like this doesn't stop. Stop at one case, right? And it becomes a norm. So every artist gets morally investigated, basically, right? So in the long term, there's going to be huge portions of art, literature, music, basically, which gets ignored or erased, right? And especially historical works, because old values doesn't match modern values, right? So, for example, J.K. Rowling controversy. Some people boycott Harry Potter in schools, in different communities. They debate about removing it, right? Now, for example, if we scale this logic, if we apply this logic to hundreds of authors, basically, like entire library becomes problematic, right? Or for example, also take as an example PDD, who like basically public canceled him, right? But like in the past, his strikes were so popular, so good. I mean, like people had no complaints, but one time he did something wrong, people started canceling him. So yeah, basically why the impact of this is that we are losing cultural heritage because of the cancel culture, and people stop engaging critically. So basically they will think, oh, good person equals good art, right? But it is not like that. We have to assess art independently, and society becomes intolerant to complexity. So why is it important? It's important because if culture is erased, we lose shared identity, we lose historical lessons, intellectual diversity, right? Which is very important actually in today's society. And society becomes shallow and reactionary and not helpful. Moving on to my second argument, I want to talk about that linking art to the artist leads to systematic removal of. No. If art is judged through the artist, creativity will restrict themselves, killing innovation, which is actually very important also, right? Because firstly, artists, they observe consequences, like people get cancelled and therefore they lose reputation, they lose income, they lose audiences, and they will update their behavior, right? So basically they will think like, oh, if personal life or opinions affect my art, I must be I must be different and I have to be careful, right? So, next, what happens next is that basically they avoid controversial topics, they avoid expressing honest and unique ideas, which is also very important. So, basically they will stick to safe opinions, and there's going to be effect in industry because producers, investors also avoid risky artists. And this will promote not only this will promote only clean, unproblematic creators. So yeah, this is very, very important because without risk there's going to be no progress and art becomes repetitive, generic, and shallow. And thank you, I didn't manage to
Thank you for the speech, Deputy Prime Minister. Now we can call on the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
So first thing I really want to clear up is that we are not saying that we are going to reject or censor some kind of art jobs, but what we're talking is that we should make people freely consider the value of artwork by more information, like about the artist's life or artists what they did, something like that. And we had like a big three points about the argument. First, assessing independently from the artist is not possible. And second, if it's possible, even if it's possible, assessing independently is a bad thing, and I'm going to explain why. And third, actually, not assessing independently has a really good benefit. So, first, it's not possible. The government has some rebuttals about this that actually they can be possible because the itself has the value, like the art itself has a value. But no, what we're talking is that art is actually the artist himself, because like what they make or what they draw is based on what they really think is important and what they have experienced. So the art itself is a really big combination about the artist's life itself. Like for example, the first people have said, like Juan Gogh, actually this is a really fact that he became popular because after his death, and this is important because after his death, the letters and his personal life has been shown to the public, and it really made them really popular. And also, I'm going to add another example about for example, a modern art. Modern art may be really simple, like just one dot or one triangle, something like that. But it can really have some meaning. But because it really shows how abstractly, how the artists have thought about the problems or what they really think is worthy. So that really shows that it really is impossible to independently assess the art from the artist. So even if it's possible and assessing independently, it's really harmful because the first speaker has talked about. First, the human art's value are going to be really harmed. And this is really important because we are all human, and what we are making and what we think is important is having a loss in the value is really harmful for artists itself, because like we said, art is like a life of their artist's life. So when it's denied and when is assessed less value, that is really big harm for the artist itself, and also for society. And yeah, so the government has said that maybe AI arts or just looking pretty arts may have some values, especially about the AI arts. But also this is I think it's kind of a conflict contradicts their arguments, because they have said that the reason why AI art is valuable is that they can also have their intention to it, like making a prompt or something, but considering their intention is actually considering the artist's thinking. Okay, I'll take
So do you think that the prompt is the same thing as intention?
Actually, there's like two kinds of things of a prompt. Like for example, just randomly generating an image is what we have talked about, that AI generated art is not valuable, but what you talk about is that maybe art with the intention, like prompt, like I want this image and I want to show this kind of issue, maybe that can be valuable. But even if in that case, that is really valuable because that only become valuable when it is about what the artist thinks is a problem and what artist thinks is important, and that is actually an evidence for our argument that the real value of the art is depending on the artist's life and artist's thoughts. So, and also I want to back up for the second argument that this is really harmful. Actually, like, maybe some people will say like just looking pretty may be some valuable for some people, but no, not really, because actually that means that they're giving the money to the bad guys. Like even if you think like being pretty is really important, but still they have another like values about what you think, and if the important values are harmed by the artists, like what they have done previously, then also the consumers will gonna regret like buying it because that's like contradicting their own values. And like A, for the consumer, there are conflicts. They will not like to contradict their values, and B, about the artist, they're not gonna regret what their fault is. And this is really harmful for themselves too, because mostly the bad things are banned because of the victims also, but also for the bad guys, because that is not really good for the humanity. And third, about the society members, it's going to be morally discussed. It's going to be like impacting the moral standards in a bad way, because it's going to be not moral. And thirdly, we're going to say that this assessed independently is really important and have beneficial, because actually art has a social impact, really much. Because more than like public education, it may be boring, but what about art? Like a movie or like a pop song or whatever, the people will gonna like it. And even if there's like a scandal or something, there's gonna be some more attention and gonna talk about things, and it will affect the world in a good way. Thank you, Carol, for this.
Thank you for the speech, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now may we call on the government whip. Here you.
And it's 50 seconds to prepare. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, honorable opposite team, as the whip for the government, I will show why our side clearly wins the debates by resolving the main clashes of this debate and tributing our arguments. But to start with, I want to rebuttal your arguments. First of all, you think that for example, by supporting the art and like whatever art it is we're talking about right now, it supports the human itself. So if he did a bad thing, so we kind of support him. But actually, it's not true because you make the connection between art and the human, and we do not accept the behavior of this person. We only accept his art, his outcome, what he did. And actually, we want to mention that also. You mentioned about the storytelling. Of course, it's right. Besides all the art, it is storytelling. However, inside the art, it is storytelling. And if author and the creator wanted to put the storytelling inside the art, he will do it by technique, by creativity, by emotional impact. And it all is connected to the storytelling. So we mean that, and you are talking about only art of drawing it, but there are lots more art, as we mentioned before. Next, the Van Gogh case. You previously said that the Van Gogh art became more valuable after his death. However, I have the question, why his art wasn't such popular in the time he was living? Because of what? Because of the cancellation of the artist, or what? Because he was crazy, or what? This is how it actually works. The society thought that Van Gogh is crazy man, and he didn't, and by his art, he expressed his crazy storytelling, and society accepted his behavior with this. That means actually that as you mentioned before, society, society really judged only by his behavior, and they cancelled him. But after many years after his death, his art started to be more valuable because they started to understand, actually, maybe it was beautiful, and the technique and stuff like this is really beautiful, so yeah, let's make it valuable. This case exactly shows how it doesn't work, how it shouldn't be working right now. Also, about the prompt for the AI, you were saying this word, the prompt is actually, as we understood what you provided us from our side, the prompt is what we are given to the AI information to create it. And basically, you telling him what to draw exactly, and you putting in this perspective, the author is explaining the technique, how to draw it, explaining what he imagines, and explain like all his creativity stuff. And by this, the imagination of the AI, the draw of the AI will be created by the technique, as we mentioned before, by the creativity and emotional impact that person actually put it inside. This is the storytelling, of course, it is storytelling, but storytelling is recreated in the draw as well. Now, I will continue with talking about the main clashes. I think, in our perspective, the main clash is about that we, first of all, we support the not the correct people by the art, but actually it's what we're proving wrong, that besides who this person is, his background, if it is art, and art itself is beautiful and is ideal, and we only evaluate the art. We do not support, of course, the behavior of this person who did it, but the art is beautiful, the technique and everything inside is beautiful as well. So that's what we actually judge. Also, we are separating moral judgment of the artist from evaluation of the art itself. The art should be judged fairly, independent, and without bias. And the case actually of the bad person and his art is bias. This is it goes to the protect value of art. Our first argument. Our second argument is art appreciation should be focused on artistic merit. It means that art evaluation exists inside artwork, not artists. If we separate it, this will be the assess of the creativity in general, not the person. Thirdly, our third argument, this such evaluations assessing the art not with the artist is prevent the cancel culture, because we put in because right now people start rejecting art based on the past actions, personal beliefs, and public opinion, and the public opinions lead to mass rejection. This is how actually it worked with the Van Gogh. Also, if this means that valuable work disappeared, public discourse became emotional and not rational, and they cannot clearly judge the art itself. And culture in the future becomes unstable. If morality becomes the standard, no art is ever safe from the cancellation. That's what we mean. And the fourthly, we are talking about the freedom and future of the creativity. Freedom, artists know so they will be cancelled because of the stigma and stuff like this in society right now. So they censor themselves. They avoid controversial topics and limits their creativity. That leads to lack of innovation. And lastly, I want to say that this debate about protecting art itself, and once you tie art to the flaws of the artist, you don't create justice. You destroy the culture. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech, Government Whip. Now let's call on the opposition whip. Here.
I will start with some review part and I move on to main. First, I think government cannot even make some standard of what is good art and bad art. Is beautiful and high quality is good art? I cannot understand well about. I think they don't make some standard of it, and that is why the meaning is very important in art, because art is the tool to give some meaning. Art is a tool to express my life and my thought and my experience or etc. But if there is no, if we just separate the art and the artist, how can we define that is meaningful or not? So we define that the meaning of art is that the artist put their life and their thought in the art well or not. So I think we made the standard more better of the art. And also government mentioned that it might be disappear because of cancel culture, but
Point of clarification.
sorry, I'll take it later. You mentioned that it will be disappear because of cancel culture, but actually we cannot agree of this because people can think individually and can think differently about one art because they all have different experience and different thought and etc. And even if they have cancel culture, so a lot of artistic painting or some books it disappeared. That is why we cannot separate. The majority of people think that we cannot separate art and artist well. So when I saw the paint, I I I have no choice to think about the bad thing about the artist. So I think I have to cancel that art. That means that we can separate well. And also the government mentioned that government gives some example that if someone makes some lyrics that I fucked up with many girls, but actually when we think of the lyrics, if two different men make same lyrics and one is true and one is false, and can we just think that is same? No, we cannot. If we know that is true or that is not, we think differently about one lyrics. Even if the I'll take later. Even if the lyrics is same, and I move to Wayne. First, I will make some example of nowadays. Nowadays we have many remix art. I'll take later. Remix art, for example, the movie or some song. But why that is meaningful? Because everyone think differently and everyone get the art differently. So remix is meaningful because different person made. So because his life, his or her life, and the thought and many experience are in the lyrics and songs, and even if the interpret of the song is in the remix, so it is meaningful. And also we mentioned that if the kids saw some picture or book without the information of artist, it may be very harmful. But if we have to regulate, we have to know the artist, so we can regulate to our kids. And also I want to make some. I'll take later. I want to make some example of the famous art become not famous, or not famous art become famous. Why our thought become different? Because the time changes and people's thought become changed. So many people think differently that the evaluation of the artist, so it become different. So as our leader of opposition mentioned, it is already high technology and we have a lot of technology like AI or camera or etc. So if art doesn't have meaning, it is not meaningful because all of the art now AI can make, and I take later, like camera or AI can make them also. So the real meaning of the art is the people's or person thought or artist's life inside the art. So we fully prove that why this is meaningful, that when they're not separated, and why we should not to be assessed independently from the artist. So, but I think government cannot prove well about the standard of good art and why we uniquely should to assess independently from the artist, but we prove uniquely this is uniquely good. So I think we are better debate this time. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech, opposition whip. Now may we call on the opposition reply period.
artists because mainly it's because if we assess independently, we're going to harm so much in humans' arts value in high technology society, like we already recognized. And this is really a huge thing. I mean, the government side in government's world, they're going to harm the human arts value, and this is actually a huge harm for the art industry itself that they are saying they're protecting, but it's actually harming. Yeah, for the art, so there was like two main stakeholders, the artists themselves and also the society members they consume. But yeah, so in the art, yeah, and about the society member, we have talked about that arts has a really huge social impact, and if you don't really use this and just like say, just look at the art independently and just like look, it's like seemingly pretty or not, it's just a huge loss about this impact. So, and actually the WIP has already said that the consumers, the people in the society, they can think by themselves. So the government has kept like talking censorship and the future about the art industry, but no, they're gonna think by themselves and they're gonna decide by their own valuation about what the art has to be and what the society has to be. So actually providing the information and considering about the artists is actually giving them more chances to value and to appreciate the art more better. And actually the impact they were talking about in society actually covers the government's argument about the cancel culture. I mean, yeah, we're not just banning some kind of a looking dangerous or looking bad thing, but what we have already said is that we're not rejecting, but we're saying that we should consider about the artist because that is the real value of the art. And actually government has said that maybe storytelling and or like inside some kind of the art itself has some kind of value, but what we have talked about is that whatever value there is, like what kind of technique they use or what kind of storytelling they use, is based on the artist's life. Like we said, what we draw or what we make or what we conduct is based on what the artist is thinking important and what they value, and that is kind of a not avoidable thing to assess art. So basically we have proved that not assessing independently from the art is much better method to value the art and value the real valuation to value the real value of the art. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the speech. Opposition reply. Now may we call on the last speaker to participate. Government reply. Here.
Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So it's a government reply. Yeah, I would like to pick up this debate and acknowledge all the arguments and our rebuttals and like make the summary. So basically, firstly, the main argument here was about the artists. They basically express their intentions in their works, right? But we already proved them wrong, and they basically didn't give enough organization of giving enough evidence of how is that true. So yeah, or like for also basically they were talking about the different experience. Like artists, they have different experience, they like background and so on, and that's why they storytell and so on. And that's how people get to know about them, right? But we already mentioned that this is basically unrealistic, right? For example, okay, if you want to get to know about the artist, do you will go and listen to the song, or go and check the website, his biography through the reliable and verified sources. Of course, like, do you really buy that? I mean, of course they do not necessarily express their intentions in the songs. We already said that many times. Also, they were talking about that. By the way, they asked that we didn't define what is good art and what is bad art. But basically, we weren't supposed to define what is good art and what is bad art because the motion is not about that. So I think that we just can put this aside. So yeah, the question here is: should we assess independently or not? And for example, if we assess art dependently with the artist, right, together. So basically, on their side, there's going to be more long-term harms, like such as loss of loss of innovation. Then there's going to be intolerant society to complexity. We already mentioned that. And also there's going to be fewer groundbreaking news, right, because of the loss of innovation, and culture becomes boring and controlled. Do we need that? I don't think that we need that because basically our society right now strives for authenticity, for uniqueness, right? So yeah, I would say like about their argument, they didn't really recognize their arguments clearly, and I would say that they rejected like 10 of our POIs. So yeah, and their side doesn't concern the main stakeholders. When we covered first the artist itself, which are gonna suffer because they're gonna lose reputation because of the cancel culture and because the loss of the audience, and even like big libraries, for example, about the books if they're gonna be cancelled, right? I mean, there's gonna be huge damage to this stuff. And also, we were talking about the society again. I will mention loss of innovation, culture, authenticity, and uniqueness. So yeah, basically, I'm done with my speech. So thank you. Thank you.
Alright, thank you for the speech. Opposition reply. Thank you everyone, government reply. Thank you everyone for the debate. The panelists and I will now go to room 202 to deliberate on this motion. Thank you.